It was a typical Saturday morning when it all went down. I had just finished mowing the lawn, and I was sitting on my front porch, enjoying a cold drink in the quiet of the neighborhood. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and everything seemed perfect. Then out of nowhere, I heard a familiar voice, Karen's voice, screeching from the street. I sighed, already knowing this wasn't going to be good. Karen, my next-door neighbor, had a way of making everything dramatic. She was the kind of person who found problems in places where there weren't any, and she didn't hesitate to make a scene. She marched up my driveway, her face twisted into the kind of expression that could make a person uncomfortable. "You, out of my yard, now!" she shouted, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. I stood up, my drink forgotten in my hand. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. "I said, leave my yard," she demanded, her voice getting louder. "I've had enough of you being on your property. You're being too loud and I don't like it. I'm calling the HOA if you don't leave immediately." I took a deep breath. This was nothing new for Karen. She had complained about everything under the sun, from how my grass was cut to the noise level of my music. The HOA, of course, had been all too eager to side with her every time, but I wasn't about to let this escalate. "Karen, this is my property," I said calmly, setting my drink on the porch. "I don't need to leave my own yard." But Karen wasn't having it. She stomped her foot and raised her finger toward me. "You have no right to be here. I'm tired of your nonsense. You better leave now, or I'll have you removed." I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. This woman was losing her mind over nothing. That's when things took an unexpected turn. As if on cue, a black SUV pulled up in front of my house. I didn't recognize the car at first, but when the door opened and three suited men stepped out, I knew something was off. They weren't just any men in suits. They carried themselves with the kind of authority that made Karen pause in her tracks. One of the men walked toward me with a cool demeanor, extending his hand. "Good afternoon, sir," he said politely. "We've been informed of a situation here. Is everything okay?" Karen, still standing in the driveway, froze. "What? What's going on here?" she sputtered, her earlier confidence faltering. The man in the suit smiled politely at her. "I believe you've been asked to leave the premises." His tone wasn't rude, but it was firm. "This is private property, and we have been informed that any disturbances here are to be handled swiftly." Karen looked between the suited men and me, completely dumbfounded. "Who are you people?" she demanded, now shaking with frustration. The man in the suit stepped back slightly, and that's when another two men in suits appeared from behind the vehicle, one of them pulling out an earpiece and speaking briefly into a mic. "This is a security detail," he said, his voice calm yet authoritative. "We've been assigned to protect this property, and as per protocol, we need to ensure there are no further disruptions." Karen's face turned an alarming shade of red. "This is ridiculous," she screamed, her voice high-pitched. "This is my neighborhood. I'm not letting this happen." "Ma'am," one of the other men said, approaching her, "you need to leave the premises. You've been asked to do so." At this point, Karen was visibly seething with rage. "No, this is my street. You can't tell me what to do. Who do you think you are?" The lead agent, who I now recognized as part of a Secret Service detail, looked at me with a raised eyebrow. He turned back to Karen, his voice unwavering. "I think you should go before we escalate this any further." Karen took one last look at me, the suit-clad agents, and then stormed off down the street, muttering to herself. Once she was out of earshot, the Secret Service detail turned to me, their expressions softening. "Sorry about that," the lead agent said with a smile. "We're just here to make sure everything stays peaceful. We've been assigned to monitor the situation." I stood there, still in shock. "I had no idea you were, involved with any of this." The agent chuckled. "I understand. My name is Agent Johnson. I'm on assignment here for a few days, and we take the safety of this property very seriously." It turns out the property wasn't just any home. I had always kept my life quiet, but the truth was that I'd been working for the government in a sensitive position for years. The Secret Service detail was assigned to me for a reason, though I hadn't needed their protection until Karen pushed the limits too far. As the agents left, I couldn't help but feel a little smirk come to my face. I had been dealing with Karen's nonsense for years, but now she knew. She messed with the wrong neighbor. The next time she came barging onto my property, she'd remember that not all neighbors are what they seem. I took a deep breath, went back inside and finished my drink, now with a story I could tell at the next family gathering.